Welcome back to another episode of the Set It Podcast from 32andmain.com. I'm your host, Zach Hayes, joined as always by my co-host, Zach Clark here. If you guys listened last week, you guys got a lot of great information from Mr. Danny Mullen of Raw Fitness. Such a great, a plethora of information about goal setting.
If only that was a week ago. It feels like
touche.
Zach and I have had, that was the last episode, and you know, we've been podcasting together for almost 2 years now, doing a variety of things. And, you know, of course, along the way, we've hit some snags. It happens. You have a technology breakdown or whatever. But for some reason, this episode, I think this is the fourth time we've done. And I've never, in all the problems that we've had over time, never had one quite like this. And it's, you know,
Zach, we never had to record the same episode more than twice.
We had a couple
issues with audio where we had to re-record it, but never the
crazy.
The fourth time over like this. But hopefully that'll make a better podcast.
Well, goodness,
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
But at this point, if it ends up having to be recorded again, I'm out.
Yeah,
We're going to skip this episode.
There is no other one.
But it's time for us here on the Set It Podcast to set a brand new goal, because you've heard some of our goals and updates with the weight loss and the meditation, and now some advice from some people who know a little bit more than we do on the subject. But that was always the idea behind this podcast, to continue to improve in different areas of either work or life. And this one is going to be directly related to the podcast itself.
This is a very meta episode.
Yes. A podcast talking about how to...
It's a goal-setting podcast episode about setting podcast goals inside of the episode about... Correct.
Mind blown.
Podception.
So let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, anytime that you're recording a podcast, or let's say maybe even doing a blog or any sort of
project,
content-driven activities that you might be doing online, you want eyes on that or ears on that, right? That's the ultimate goal.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think certainly it's like anything else. If you have a product, whether that product is something that you support your family using, right? If it's your everyday job, whether it's you making T-shirts or whatever, right? But I think even if you're a hobbyist with a product, right? Like maybe this podcast, that of course that's what you want. Look, to say that we do it for the listens would be untrue to a certain extent, because if that was the case, we probably would have stopped already. But at the same time, I think that we're talking about having motivation to continue to do it and to want to do it, and certainly to know that people are listening is a great motivator. And then that's kind of what we've talked about conceptually here with this podcast anyway, is that you create accountability and support through numbers, and we can't do that unless people are hearing the podcast. And so I think to have a goal to grow the podcast will help us with our own goals down the road.
I agree.
And because again, this podcast is not going to be about our own goals all the time. The goal, see what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did.
Is to have other people share their ambitions with us, and to use those ambitions to help us grow as a community. I think it's so important. And, you know, Ken Hirschman said this about a month ago when he and his wife were going through something. And at first he's like, you know, we felt super isolated. We feel like it's not something that a lot of people are going through. And then he shared that thing, and he was surprised by how many people were like, hey, you know, we've dealt with this too. And
you're not alone, guys. There's other people out there trying to do the same thing you are.
And when it comes to weight loss or your meditation goals, it's like, you know, there's been plenty of people that have tried to lose weight and failed. There's been plenty of people that have tried to lose weight and succeeded. You can learn, I believe, equally from both of those people.
Totally.
And then there are other people that have never had to lose weight. They have this lifestyle, this thought process, and you can learn from them too. And again, you realize that while you may not be going through the same thing that other people are going through, you'll, I think, be surprised by how many other people have gone through something similar. But again, we can't do any of that unless we have those other people. And to do that, we need to get listened. So, Zach, we need people to discover this podcast. That's the goal of this episode, is how do we get more people to discover this podcast? Do we do it through social media? Do we do it through, do we do it through things on social media that don't cost any money? Do we do it through things on social media that do cost money? Should we be taking advantage of more hashtag type things, right? And should we be more consistent throughout the whole process? I think those are all questions we have to.
I think consistency is key here because, like we said, we fell behind on getting the episodes out. So that's a detriment to us. And will that possibly lure some people away? Do they want the consistent episodes? But let's just start with an organic way to grow an audience. From a social media standpoint, you have a personal social media account on Instagram and Twitter. I have a personal account on Instagram and Twitter. But we also have this other thing for 32 in Maine that has an Instagram and Twitter. I think we have a Facebook page for 32 in Maine, and we also have
Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for 32 in Maine.
And the Set It podcast specifically, right?
The Set It podcast has a Facebook page and a Twitter handle. And I'll be honest with you, like sometimes I wonder if
that's necessary.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
I think that's a conversation worth having, is that can we achieve more success if we slash all of our social media accounts other than, because we have a couple other podcasts too. And so it's like we're juggling like 7 social media accounts that have a combined like 10 followers. And it's like, what are we doing?
You're better off. It's like this. You're better off having one thing that kind of houses everything. And I think that's what we did with 32 in Maine, right?
Well, it's what we said we were going to do, but then we haven't actually done it.
Well, but now it's starting to house everything. It's starting to be this catch-all for any sort of content.
Talking about the website.
Yeah. But then, so in turn, we both have personal accounts that we can put that information out. We've already established that, but it feels like maybe the individual show doesn't need its own page. Maybe 32 in Maine can be that facilitator for everything. And now we're not overwhelmed when it comes to posting, or we're not second guessing ourselves. Like, should we push it through this account or that account? It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. And I think from a content standpoint and what we're creating, it's going to make for a more of a targeted post instead of something that is just kind of being put out there and nobody's really following along. So I think the social media thing, if you and I can fine tune that a little bit and really get it down to where there's a method behind our madness, so to say, then I think that might help get some people to attract to the show.
So I think here, because we have, the way we've been doing this is we have a goal episode and then we have an update episode. And so I think as we chart this episode, so the first list item for accomplishing this goal is going to be not only trimming down the amount of social media accounts that we have, because again, I'm with you, I think this is too much going on.
Agreed.
But then from there, once you trim all of those and funnel everything through the 32 in Maine accounts, we need to develop a legitimate on paper social media plan. And
you say on paper, I say on dry erase board, because we've established how much I love
You're
those.
a dry erase board person.
And so we're going to do that.
We'll need to set aside some time, because I think you're right. Like, you're talking about organic growth, and organic growth through social media without spending any money is more laborious. And but I do think it's worth it, because you could spend the money, grab those followers, be inconsistent, lose those followers. Now they're not coming back.
Right.
You've lost the money. But I do think that once we establish, over the next week, establish a plan and then spend some time executing that plan, I do think down the road in a couple of weeks, it would be worth $20 on Facebook advertising.
It's not a bad,
not a big investment.
No, and I don't think it's a bad experiment either, and
to see if it works.
And to kind of do these things in phases too. Right. What you don't want to do is you don't want to take all these changes and start them at the same time, because it's going to be very difficult to find out and figure out which one of those things worked and which one of those things didn't work. We want to know if we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, if you have 9 variables, it's really hard to isolate.
It's too much. And I think doing those things in kind of like week here, week there, week here, week there. And don't forget, when we do bring on somebody like Danny Mullen or Kenny Hirschman,
and he shared,
we should expect the numbers to spike on those episodes organically, naturally, because it's a new voice who is sharing it with their audience. So now a new audience is potentially picking up those episodes. So that kind of plays into
and I think
growth as well.
And I think that's perfect that you said that, because that to me was going to be the next thing. Was we need to involve. If we say we want more people to be involved, we need to involve more people. And
we don't have people beating down our door to be on the podcast.
And why would we, right?
Right.
And I think that means not only going after more people like Danny, because, when we talked to Danny, he had a goal. We talked about that at the end, but it was more about thought process and working through it. And I think if he's willing, he should be a recurring.
Oh yeah. Check back in with
absolutely.
him.
Absolutely. And to check us against the things that he said. And so, but I do think we need to expand, should it be every other episode? Should it be like, all right, now there's a you and me episode?
Can we have a Danny driven segment, a raw fitness driven segment?
We could, but what I was thinking more was, can we have this week's episode is you and I? So next week we'll have a guest. The week after that it'll be you and I. Again.
Yeah.
The week after.
That's a good goal to have as well. It's like a goal inside a goal.
And then, again, it is on the list. Remember, one of the things that Danny said was about the breakdown of the goal. You got to be able to map it out and ask yourselves why. And obviously the social media consistency, why? Because that is how you grow things like podcasts, right? You're not doing it on billboards. You're not doing it on radio ads. And then you talk about having the guests, because our goal is to not only create a community, but to have people share those episodes with their own community and spread the awareness. And so I think these two things, the social media consistency and the more frequent guesting, are not goals inside of goals. They're just what you do
to the end.
Exactly. They're what you do to accomplish the bigger goal, which we said the goal is to grow the podcast.
Yeah, because look, we're not sitting back here making wish boards and stuff like that. Like, you can't wish these goals into fruition. If you're going to set a goal, you have to know what action items you have to take to make that come true. If I would have said I wanted to lose weight, but I was unwilling to change my eating habits or get on a Peloton bike, I don't know how I would have reached that. It wasn't going to happen. So having those things at your disposal to kind of say and there's not just one answer either. There's not just one end all be all that's going to get you there, but you have to be consistent and you have to have that strategy, because, I've seen a lot of stuff on, we kind of upload all of our podcast episodes to Anchor. And Anchor is an app basically that will allow you to host your podcast, and they have these message boards on Facebook where you can share your podcast, you can ask questions, see how other people are promoting their podcast, because I see a lot of people who they post, they have a lot less listens than us, but then there's a lot of people who have a lot more episodes that are listened to than us. They have a better following, and I'll listen to them and I'm thinking, I can't believe there's this many people listening to it. I'm surprised almost, because I think quality wise, I think we stand out in our field, and I think that we do a good job with these. So I think if we can bring that audience in, I think they're going to stick around for the long haul. And we've got how many more weeks of this left? This is going to be a year-long haul for us. This isn't something that's going to end season 1, and you're going to have to wait on a cliffhanger to see what happens in season 2, or we're going to switch formats or something like that.
Right. And so, Zach, I think that as we move forward, hopefully the quality of the episode, and I think you're right as far as audio quality goes. We've struggled at times with video quality. It's not
video's tough, man.
It's not often exactly where we want it, and it's not been for lack of trying. And we've tried a lot of different things when it comes to the orientation of this room, the room next door. I mean, if you've been watching any
I'll
videos,
take the blame
of ours
for that.
over the year,
That's usually me.
But I mean, but what I like about it is each time there's a change, and the goal is to keep getting better. And we've evolved in the space. But Zach, I think if we can do those things, I think first of all, consistency and having a driven plan as far as, because when I say be more consistent on social media, it's like, we'll post an episode and then, we'll post another episode. And then, right. But can we do things? Can we share other articles that are about goal setting? Can we?
That's a great idea.
Can we? And again, I don't want to become like an aggregator and start spitting out all kinds of crazy, but things
that a lot of those sites or
I know,
but
my goal is to have a little more interaction than automation.
More authenticity.
Right. I would want authenticity and interaction over automation. Right. And so again, I think sharing articles, but it's like, this is something that, or could we bring those articles like that to the episode, share them out, create things like polls. And this stuff is small, but I think if you can establish consistency, it's because I've seen it.
You had a great idea the last time we recorded this. You were talking about doing the memes, like have a meme Monday about the something related to the upcoming podcast, and I think that's a great idea.
Should we be jumping on the meme of the moment?
I think so. Because the last time it was about The Weeknd and his performance at the Super Bowl. Right. That was the new meme on Monday. Everybody was posting him running in that house of mirrors, and it was trying to find the next episode of the Set It podcast. Right. And that's something that I think does go a long way, just to have some fun interaction with the audience instead of it just being, here's our episode, listen, let us know what you think. And now the other thing that is huge in the podcast arena is ratings and reviews. Believe it or not, that does a lot of good when trying to search and find.
It helps you rise to the top, or to the near, not the top, but rise to, because again, there are like millions and millions of podcasts, right? But if you can assemble, a handful of reviews and X amount of, it doesn't even, the number of stars matter, but it's like a credit score.
Sure.
You're better off having a low star rating than none at all.
Isn't that funny? Because at least people are listening at that point. You know that you're catching somebody's attention for some reason.
But it's true.
But like in that sense, that's our ask for you listening right now.
Rate us and review us.
As part of our goal setting, we are asking that you guys give us a rating. Give it hopefully 5 stars, but if
it doesn't have to be.
I mean, we would prefer it that way. Write a review. I mean, it takes a very small amount of time. Have you rated our podcast and reviewed it? I don't think I've reviewed ours. I know I've given us a 5-star.
I think I've given us the 5 stars, but I'm not.
So we've at least got that down. But
I think I have to go back and look now that you've said that.
And that's something that we can do within our existing audience. But let's get into that a little bit. So if we go back and we remember what Danny told us on the last podcast, it does help to set those realistic goals. We want to make sure when we're thinking about these numbers here, when we're targeting what we want that growth number to be over that course of time, we want to make sure it's realistic. To sit back and say, well, we want 1,000 people listening to this every week. Within 3 months,
it's got to be 9 or a 10.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put that at a 9 or a 10. I'm thinking that's more of like a 1 or a 2 on how realistic it is. So, I mean, we have to know going into it where we're starting and where we want to be.
So, I mean, I obviously we know where we're starting. I mean,
it's low.
It is, and that's fine. It's what anybody would expect. Can we get to, late February now, I guess. Can we get to, I mean, what about 25 listens?
Where are we starting? Tell the audience where
right
we're
now,
at.
I don't know, 10 or 12 per probably.
We're getting about
higher.
You're right there. 11. Danny's episode was higher. So we had 11, I think, on average.
Let's call it 10.
Okay, fair enough.
Call it 10 on average, right? I mean, we can go back and divide and share the actual number with you. But again, it's nothing that anybody is going to be like, oh my God, look at how impressive this is.
Well, the number I'm starting at would not be 10 if I'm trying to impress you guys by any means.
I'll be honest.
Being honest.
I think even 25 would not be a number where I would. I'm not. If I have a podcast, even if it's just a regular one, if I'm not hitting multiple hundreds, I'm not saying a word about how many listens I'm getting. That's just me. I totally
agree.
And that's no disrespect.
We've had that though before. I mean, Zach and I have done a locally driven podcast here that had not just hundreds of listens a week, but I mean, you're talking thousands of views on some of the videos that we posted on Twitter. I mean, we really have a built-in audience, and I think that's something where we could turn to as well to help the process.
Right. Okay. So here we go. We've got social media consistency, right?
Yep.
What was the second one? See, I'm already forgetting. We're already failing here.
Social media consistency and a little bit.
Guesting. Guesting was the second one.
Guesting was the second one.
And then, so there's your third one. Right there is, we've already asked you to rate and review. That's helpful. But we're going to help ourselves out a little bit, and we're going to share this episode on
the feed.
On other feeds
that we have an audience for.
And I'm not going to keep doing it. I'm not going to spam them because we don't want to we don't want to water down the other feeds.
They either stay with it or they don't.
Right. But so there's another one. So there are 3 different things right there that we can do. So Zach, I think 25 listens number. By when?
Okay, so let's see here.
I don't even know what today is. It's like the 17th or 18th, right?
Yeah, it's the 17th of February as we record this episode. And let's see.
April.
If we're doing an episode a week, you figure I want to get in about 8 more episodes, which would be about 2 months.
So I mean,
mid-April. We're talking. When is Easter this year? Oh, wait. Previous podcast. Now it's coming back to me. We recorded this. We already talked about this. You said tax day,
right?
And I didn't know when tax day was, and you kind of shamed me for that.
How does businessman not know when tax day is?
I told you, man. I always do the.
But you have to have that done by.
Yeah, whatever. They get done eventually.
It's the 15th. April 15th is tax day, in case anybody's at home keeping score. And Big Businessman didn't know. It was me that knew that. But yeah, no, I think April 15th, if that episode and beyond,
yes.
Again, it won't be on that day, I don't think. I don't know what day of the week that is. I'm not Rain Man.
And then we're going to update you guys as well, though, because if there are some bumps,
I'll show you the numbers.
We can share that on social media. There's your content right there. But then after that, we can then review what we've done, what worked, what didn't work, and then set a new goal from there. Right. Because it's not about just getting to that 25, it's then expanding on that. This should be this exponential growth type pattern that you see to kind of get that consistent following and to really reinforce that what you're doing is working.
Because if it's not working, you're just wasting your time. And that's something that Danny said previously. And so I think, Zach, we'd be foolish to not take what we learned from Danny and apply some of those concepts to what we're doing. And that's what's happening right here, right? And we will, again, it's not happening in this moment, but we'll whiteboard this. We will be able to then track it, and not only just whiteboard it, but come up with a legitimate plan as opposed to just writing down social media, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
So, and there's no point in going through a point by point right here, right now, but that's what we're going to have to do.
But let me ask you
get this right.
Okay. Where does it fall? Scale of 1 to 10.
25 by April?
25 by April 15th. You got 2 months.
I think it's not a 10 for me. And I think.
Well, it better be a 9, because if it's not, we're going back to the drawing board.
No, but I think, and it's like, that's one of the things that we talked about in that episode was, and if you haven't listened, go back and check it out. It's worth it. Was sometimes the goals are external and internal, that 25 could be reasonable, but can you make yourself believe it? And
we still got to do it.
I'm not talking about foolishly believe it, but like, and so no, I think 25 for me is a 9. By April 15th, I think that we can get to 25, and if we don't get to 25, I feel like we can get damn close. Because again, You know, if it's
we're right,
like, do we
we're
throw it
be
out?
right there.
Do we throw it out if it's at 23 that day? Like, we don't. And so I think that's a sustainable goal. And again, y'all out there, rate, review, and if you feel like sharing as well, super helpful.
You want a bold statement on my end?
All right.
I'm a 10. We're going to get there, man. We're going to get there. Let's do this, because I think that's something that you and I, the one thing that I think with the podcast or any, and you were on top of it for the Mac Attack stuff. You on that Mac Attack social media game for the other podcast was on point. If we can replicate that with this podcast, I think we will easily get there by April 15th.
No pressure though, Zach.
Hey, we'll find out though.
I was talking about you on me.
It's not just you though. I'm
kidding.
I got to sit on the sidelines for that one. I didn't have to go do a lot with that. So I mean,
I won't get too off point.
Now you're going to get the power of two Zacks instead of one.
I won't get too off point, but I mean, with Mac Attack, like that was such an extension of things that I've done for such a long time that it wasn't. We didn't have to. It was like you in the Peloton. You didn't have to learn it.
Sure,
you'd already been
going
riding,
back to
right?
it.
Yeah, it was. So mark it. 25 listens on the mid-April episode and then forward.
Yep.
And we'll over the next couple of days, this is a Wednesday, it'll come out on Friday. We'll get that list out of the things that we're going to do, and then we'll be able to start tracking it, and we'll be able to see the episodes, and we'll be able to see what we're posting and see how they correlate if they do at all, and we'll be able to track it and update it.
Do you got a guest in mind for next week?
I don't. So we'll have to get on that too
as well. So we are going to keep bringing you guys all these updates on what's going on via social media. Follow us on social media. Check us out. What's the handle for Twitter, Zach?
So at 32 and Maine, that's true on Facebook. On Instagram, it's 32 Maine News. And then 32 in Maine on Facebook. And we'll leave the other socials up for a few weeks. We'll post that we're going to migrate, and then that's going to be that. But yeah, check us out, 32main.com, all across social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
What about your personal stuff?
Yeah,
throw it out there.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Zach E. Clark, and then on Instagram, I'm the Brewman Chew.
I want an episode where we talk about that handle too, because that's a great handle.
Well, it works out with my craft beer and food adventures,
yes.
right?
Also some great quality content that you're making there.
But that's the easiest. I mean, I go and drink beer.
It's your passion. And on Instagram, Primo USA for me, Primo Tees on Twitter. Stay with us here on the Set It Podcast at 32andmain.com or wherever you guys get your podcast.
Boom.